Many of you are familiar with Career Zone. I'm sure we talk about it at this conference every year. You're probably sick of it. We have a lot of updates that we've made to Career Zone in the past year and a half. I will stop now and let Jim take over. If you do have any questions that don't get addressed today, please feel free to see Jim or I after the presentation. So, Jim.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
I'm not a loudspeaker. I'm a slow talker. So if anybody in the back wants to just come down and sit around, on the floor here, so we get a better view, that feel free to do that. I'm the Capital Region Labor Market Analyst for the Department of Labor. There's 10 of us around the state, so I'm assuming this is not a Capital Region event, it's a statewide event. And I'll show you at the end where you can get the name of your specific labor market analyst. We've got the contact information up on the website, so I'll show you that. But I'm one of 10. Again, I'm from the Capital Region. And we essentially disseminate, analyze labor market information. What is labor market information? Like any other marketplace, whether it's cars, whatever, there's information about that. And for a market to work, people have to have information. Capitalism depends on people knowing what the price is of things, what people are getting paid, things like that. So the labor market is like anything else, it's supply and demand. So we have information on wages, and that's the price of labor. We have information on, one of the things, if somebody's in a marketplace and they want to sell their goods, they want to know what the demand is going to be. So we have information projections for occupational demand, so we know where the jobs are going to be in the future. So I'll show you how to get to that. There's information on what skills may be more important. As a school, as an educator, you're taking individuals, the labor itself, and you're giving them what are their options going to be? A car's got, it have automatic transmission, or is it just standard transmission? Is it a Cadillac, or is it just a, I don't want to mention any low-level cars, so I can't try to do that. But, is your student going to come out as kind of the basic student, or is he going to have a lot of options that will allow him to go in a lot of different avenues? So that's kind of what labor market information is. It's just information about this particular marketplace. And one of the things that is in the title here, let's see, we title the, let's see. I'm looking at Thursday, that's why. Labor market realities for today's working teenager. In a word, it's really bad. There's a lot of other terms I could use, but I really don't think I should use those terms right now. When the economy's bad for everybody, it's even worse for teenagers. When the economy's good for everybody else, it's still not that great for teenagers. They tend to be on the lower level. Their unemployment rates are always higher. Their participation rates are typically lower, which is in some cases, and it's been going down. In some cases, a good thing because maybe they're staying in school a little bit longer. And in different regions, where the economy is stronger in some regions, the ability for teenagers to get employment is better. So I'll show you some of that information. And then I want to show you where you can get some of our projections data, where you can get our wage data, where you can find out, who hires students, who hires 16 to 19-year-olds. It may be useful because you're trying to place them in internships. Maybe you want to find out who hires those people as well. So we have a tool that can help you do that. So just to get started, and we do have, well, I guess here, I'll get back to, just to show you how to get to the place on our website. This is the starting point for the Department of Labor website. You can just cursor over any of these individuals, businesses, and go to labor statistics. It's an overview, and it'll bring you to the main page. We also have pages for each region in the state, so you can go down. You want to select. You've got this capital region page, and there are some, in addition to the standard information, each region has some region-specific type information. So, for your particular region, you may find that useful. Some of the pieces of information that we do provide, I mentioned wages. So we've got wages by occupation, we've got wages by industry, and prevailing wages is not something that you're going to need to worry about. But for occupation, again, we go in and we can select the region. You can either use statewide data or okay, so we've got information. Can people see this? Back there? No, that's not gonna help. You get it a little bit higher. Well, anyway, occupational wages. We've got get your titles here. The standard occupational code. If you click on those are links. If you click on that, you get a little description of whatever the occupation is next to it. You'll get an employment level. Again, for the region, how many people are in that job in the capital district region? You get an average wage, a median wage, and what we're calling an entry and experienced wage. Now, on the survey, they don't ask what your entry level wage and what your experience level wage. So we kind of made those up. We took the bottom third of the respondents, averaged that, and called that the entry level wage, and we took the top 2/3 of the respondents, averaged that, and called it the experienced level wage. We just want to give people who are looking at careers the idea that there's a pretty wide range of salaries. So when you start off, when you graduate from high school and you become a chief executive, you don't immediately make $134,000. You're going to have to start at $91,000 first, and then work your way up to a higher level. So again, just to give people an idea of the range. And as you can see, we've got a pretty extensive. Well, we can't because the won't scroll down. But it's a pretty extensive list of occupations to look at that. We have I guess I should have gone here first. We've got this data by topic area. So we do have a kind of a directory of information, A to Z index. And again, one of the things was what's the condition of teenagers? Okay, this is for all workers, and for 2011, just look at this, the unemployment rate was 8.1% for all 16 and above workers. Labor force participation was 61.3, which means 61.3% of people in that population, 16 and over, were actually engaged in the labor force. It means they were employed or actively seeking a job. If we go down and look at the same data for 16 to 19-year-olds, find it. The unemployment rate for teenagers 16 to 19 was 24.7%, a little bit above the 8.1%. The participation rate was 26.9%, so less than a third of almost down to a quarter of the 16 to 19-year-olds over the course of the year were involved in the labor force. And you can see that rate has been dropping. It was up to, back in 2000, 42.7%, which was kind of a peak. The participation rate has dropped dramatically since then. That's due to two aspects. One is kind of a long-term trend that we've been seeing, which is, again, as people need more skills to be successful in the labor market, people are staying in school longer. Instead of graduating from high school looking for a job, more of them are going to further their education. So that's keeping some people out of the labor market. And then recently with the labor, the problems in the economy, the business cycle has pushed down participation rates across the board for all age groups, and teenagers are no exception to that. The participation rates are much lower in New York City, so if you looked at places outside of New York City, you'd probably be up around 35%. New York City does really pull that rate down. The unemployment rates are a little bit lower in some upstate areas, but not dramatically lower. And you can see, We did peak at about 27% back in 2009, but again, back in 2000, it was down to about 13.3%. So the unemployment rate has risen dramatically. For teenagers, it's dramatically higher than it is for adults. So it is a pretty bad situation for
The participation rate, is that the number of teenagers that are engaged in the workforce, or?
Yes, yeah. Participation rate is it's the labor force, and labor force is defined as those who are employed or unemployed, which means they're actively seeking a job. So if somebody is in school and they're not currently looking for a job.
Is part-time also considered
Yeah.
in those?
Oh yeah, part-time is
Okay.
employed. As long as you work 1 hour, you're considered employed. And so it's just that labor force as a share of the civilian non-institutional population, 16 and over.
Just another question. With students needing or people requiring more skills so they're staying in school and they're not necessarily in the workforce, there's a lot of internships because corporations are jumping to education for whatever reason to get whatever they can get. Those wouldn't be included in those numbers. So students may be
Unpaid
engaged.
internship, no, they're not.
They would
they're
be
not.
engaged maybe in shadowing or working with
Oh,
people,
yeah,
but
the
they're not-
internships,
but
right, but they're not
part of it.
included in labor force. If it's a paid internship, then
Right.
certainly they
Oh,
are, but
they
if it's
would be,
unpaid,
okay.
they would not be included in that. Oh, you got more questions already?
And obviously that's on the books,
Excuse me?
on the books as opposed.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Yeah, the underground economy is certainly,
Just putting it out.
well, we don't talk about that. We want us to measure that, but it's kind of hard to measure it if it's off the books.
Can I just ask, was there any estimate about what percentage do we believe the teens are working on? Is anybody looking at that, or, I'm just curious.
I'm sure there are consultants that are willing to give you a number on that, but again, when it's off the books and,
Right.
undercover, it's kind of hard to
Right.
figure out what that is. Yes.
Jim, yesterday we had a big discussion about how to find potential employers.
Mhm.
And I don't know if on your route you were going to
Yep.
take us to, I love your site where it'd be info groups, search by industry.
Yeah.
So if you could include that.
Yes, I was going to do that. And I guess we can, that seems to be a question. So we'll show you. First, I want to show you how to find out what industries are hiring, by age group. And then we'll find out, based on that industry, where we can find employers that do that. You have a, I guess I should go back. If you go under employment, we have something called local employment dynamics. This is a joint project between labor departments around the country. I think almost every state is including that now. There may be one or two that are still not involved yet. And the Census Bureau. And basically, we have information on jobs by industry and what by company, and Census Bureau, and we have Social Security numbers for people that work at those. And the Census Bureau has information by Social Security number on individuals. And so they marry those two databases based on the Social Security number, take the Social Security number off, and aggregate the data. So we can do analysis on not only how many jobs are maybe in a business, but who's actually working there. So it gives us an additional tool. Now, it's a little bit more dated than some of our more current data, simply because there's a lot more work involved in terms of marrying those databases. But one of the tools that we have is called Industry Focus. And this allows us to get a ranking indicator, so we can say, okay, what industries have the most employment, where's the most growth occurring, where's growth in hiring, number of new hires, firm job change, earnings for all workers. So we can make that our determining factor, and then we can include other things in that report. And we can go forward. We can look at this by age group, by sex, and then for different geographic areas in the state. So right now, let's look at the number of new hires, and we'll look at just that. And we'll look at 14 to 18-year-olds, which at least for the high school internship should cover most people. And we'll look at both male and female. We probably don't want to, let's do a metro area. And let's pick Sarah. We look at all sectors.
Bless you.
Now, we picked the top 10. If you wanted 20, if you wanted 30, whatever, you could change that. And we found out, to no surprise, that food service and picking places employs, hires the most people. In beverage stores, it's number 2, so grocery stores are there. So educational services is number 3. Repair and maintenance stores, amusement, gaming, recreation, administrative support, nursing and residential care, clothing stores, and general merchandise stores. So it's not really big surprises for youth, but if we then go in and look at educational services, we can see the distribution by age. We can see that there's a little bit more female than male in for employee distribution. So we can find out from this, okay, who's hiring you?
Excuse me?
Yes.
Can you give examples of what you mean, what is meant by educational services?
Well, it includes schools. There's some other services as well, but
Yes,
it's
teenagers working at school.
yes, working at school. Now, part of that, probably not 14, 18-year-olds, but if you look at like 19 to 21-year-olds, you're going to have people working in colleges, resident, advisors. The other one, lost my brain. But so a lot of students who are working at the schools, work studying at the schools, or would be included that, but certainly not for a high school student. But if you want to know where to find people in educational services, we go to our staffing patterns in New York State. And we can find out what occupations are in that category. So let's go down to education services. So the detail we have is the 611 for the industry code, which is educational services, but that includes elementary, secondary schools, junior colleges, and universities. Obviously, not too many 14 to 18-year-olds are there. Business, computer management training, technical and trade schools, one of the named other schools in instruction, and then some educational support services. But we'll give you the industries, and if you want to go in and look at the primary occupations in that industry, you've got that as well. Now, to look for businesses in educational services, we'll go to our business directory. And this is a database that the U.S. Department of Labor purchases from a private group because the information that we have is confidential, so we're not allowed to put that out there. But they purchase it. They've been doing it for about 10 years now, and they make it available to each of the states, and you can customize it for your particular state. And you can go into this and look in 2 different ways. You can search by occupation, or you can search by industry. So we'll do then educational services. And if we want to get more particular, let's go to technical and trade schools. You can pick a county or multiple counties. And then it'll give you a list of businesses, or in this case, they're schools, but they're still businesses as well. For each one, it'll give you a name, address, phone number. If it's got a website, it'll give you that, and an employment range as well. So if you wanted to look at, maybe we'll pick a different industry too. Well, construction, especially trade contractors. So if you're looking to place people in construction, we've got a list of construction companies that, you know, you can use to do that.
The reason that you purchase it, because what you're saying is that the information you have on the actual businesses in your regions, whatever, is confidential?
Yes, it's from the Unemployment Insurance Program, and U.S. Department of Labor, their lawyers determined that nothing on that database can be released, with some exceptions. If there's a local law that has to be enforced, we do it to certain local governments, but not to us.
So all the other statistics are derived from that, but you can't actually release it directly.
Right, exactly. So that's how we can find out, you know, where to possibly place some people. Now, if you're interested in what may be good employment prospects for individuals, we've got a couple of ways to look at that. We do set up short and long-term occupational projections. We do them on alternate years. The most recent long-term are 2010 to 2020. The short-term are 2011 to 2013 period. I think for your purposes, the longer-term projections would be more appropriate. And it gives us an idea of where the growth will be, but also where the openings may be. And just because an occupation is not growing doesn't mean there won't be a significant number of openings. There's a replacement need is much stronger driver of job openings than is employment growth. So we can we're downloading now, so we're just going to wait. We're going to have a little fun time. Have
Is this
some coffee.
information available by region then?
The projections?
Yes.
Yes. I'll show you as soon as it comes up on the computer screen. I'll explain it to you because you probably can't see it from there, right? And maybe it's not going to download. Okay. All right.
I have another question.
What is it?
Would you be able to just make that a little larger, like if you go to view and zoom in a little bit?
Control plus and comes on right here.
Yeah, I know there's nothing on the bottom. Just scroll all the way down. If you hit enable editing, I think that'll.
Okay, well, that seems to have locked up altogether. Well, yes, it is available by region. Again, it's the 10 regions of the state. We also have statewide information, and it'll give you information on the base year employment numbers by occupation, occupational group. It gives you an estimate of the 2010 end year for our able assistant.
We can't zoom in because we don't have the scroll bar,
Yeah.
but I don't know if Jim can explain.
Okay, so we've got the 2010, 2020 employment numbers, the net change. So we can give an idea of where the growth is, percent change. You can see all occupations expected to grow by 7.7%. So you can kind of make it do a relative to that. And then we have annual average openings. So each year we expect 18,000 openings. And the use of openings in this idea is net openings. So it does not include, say, there's two restaurants and they both, lay off their waiter and waitress, and then they just switch jobs. It doesn't have those types of openings in it. It gives us an idea of the need for a new trained individual in that occupation. So we've got those occupations that are due to growth, and then replacement need. You can see of the 18,000, 13,000 are due to replacement need. Replacement is, people are retiring, or for some other reason are permanently leaving that occupation. They're not, leaving for a couple of months, coming back in. They're permanently leaving that, so it may be a clerical person who's got more education and has now got a professional job, so they're not coming back in. Tips from the audience.
Does that help?
That's what it did, then.
It's still not making it clear.
Go up and scroll. I can scroll for you. There's the scroll bars in. Is that better?
It's a little better. A little bit bigger little scroll. Just so you can see some of the.
Oh. So, yes.
Thank you.
Sure. I'll be your assistant.
So again, you can see the regions. Once you open the spreadsheet, each of the regions is listed down below. So it gives you, it has the actual numbers in it. Now, another way that we present it, now that you've done all that, I'll just close it out. We have employment prospects. And again, this is another spreadsheet. Why don't you sit down here again?
Okay.
For some reason, it says files up there, and now it's just spreadsheets. So now we have to wait for everything to download. This kind of makes it a little bit easier. The occupations are listed alphabetically. We have something called employment prospects, whether it's, instead of looking at the data and trying to make a determination, it's kind of been done before that. We've got 4 categories: very favorable, favorable, unfavorable, and very unfavorable. We used to not have unfavorable because people didn't like that term. So we had very favorable, favorable, less favorable, and least favorable. But they're all favorable. But now somebody's decided we can use the term unfavorable, and we won't get in trouble. So again, we've had job titles, and there is a.
Keep going.
I guess that's good. After you open, we've got again the prospects, so it gives an idea of whether it's favorable for the future. It has the annual average openings. And this again, this is for the capital region. Again, this is available by region. It has 2 different education markers. One is the entry-level education required. Bureau of Labor Statistics has come up. This is the minimum that somebody needs to get into that occupation. Some occupations require work experience for the occupation, and scroll slowly over. What type of job, on-the-job training is necessary? You can see there's a lot of none to begin with because these are all management positions. But if you went down, you'd find a lot that, there's 3 different levels. There's a short-term, which is less than a month, so it's very short-term, OJT. Medium, which is more than a month, less than a year, and long-term on the job, which is a year or more. A little bit farther. And then there's the usual education attained. So, the BLS puts out what the minimum is to get that type of a job, but then we also have information on people that are actually working in the occupation, what typically is their education level. And you'll find some interesting ones. There's one that the minimum requirement is a high school education, but the usual person working the job has a master's degree. So it was some sort of a counselor job. So it was kind of a wide range. But a lot of them we'll see that there's people with bachelor's degrees, associate's degrees in jobs that theoretically minimum is a high school education. So this is a little bit easier way to look at it. You can sort it any way you want, because it is a spreadsheet, so we can do that. So that gives you an idea of what jobs will be in demand. We also, again, have the short term. Okay, short term, same information, but it's for a shorter term, 2-year period, and that's really more appropriate for placing people, not so much for education people, because we're not looking at where are the jobs going to be, but kind of where are they right now, or where are they going to be in the next year. So if you're a placement agency, the short term I think are more important than the long term. And again, it's the same information, it's just a different time period. We do not have the employment prospects for the short term. We also have industry projections that are on here because that's part of the process of coming up with the occupational projections to do the industry projections first. So
A lot. I really.
yeah, that this is the A. That's the elementary level where you have to first write on those huge sheets of paper that have pieces of wood still floating in them. And you have a pencil, it's like a horse's lay on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. All right, now we're ready to exit out of that. Thank you. I wouldn't go anywhere.
Oh, you're still going?
I'm sure we will, I'm sure.
Well, stay.
Now, if you're interested in where employment growth by industry is occurring, because you may want to, you can look at it at occupations to place people in, you may look at what industries you want to place people in. So each month, we do a set of estimates. The most recent ones came out yesterday. I'm sure you all were glued to your television sets, listening and learning about the new job numbers that came out from the New York State Department of Labor yesterday. But here they are. And again, we have it for state, metropolitan areas, down to smaller counties outside metropolitan. So let's look at, who do we want to look at now? Let's look at Buffalo. Or Buffalo people. I suppose we're going to want to expand this, huh? It's not a spreadsheet, so you can't zoom it the same way. You have to go to view and zoom it.
Oh, what was that? Cool.
Well, we have, again, different areas are going to have different industry detail. We have, so total job, yeah. Private sector, so we get manufacturing, we have some breakout of those, retail, trade, information, finance activities, down to the major groups. So you get an idea of where growth has been over the past year. We've got the most recent data was for March, so you can look what happened over the month and then also over the year. Over the year for the areas is probably a more appropriate way to find out where growth is occurring because you don't get seasonal fluctuations with the over the year information. You can see Buffalo added 1,400 jobs, 3,200 private sector. So we went down, we see some pretty negative numbers in the government avenue. So construction's down 1,900, manufacturing down 600. So again, you can get an idea of where a lot of the growth or declines are occurring by industry. But again, that doesn't mean that there aren't necessary openings in a declining industry. Again, we saw that replacement need is the strongest indicator of job opportunities. So sometimes we're in a situation where we're seeing a declining industry, but still having labor shortages in that industry. Manufacturing has been one of those recently because of the changes in skill levels in manufacturing, and the fact that for decades people were saying don't go into manufacturing, it's dying. Nobody did. So we've had a lack of new entrants into manufacturing. Now all those people that work in the factories are all 60, 70 years old, and they're all starting to retire because that's what happens to we baby boomers. We get old and we stop working eventually. And so there's this, and really it's kind of across industries. One of the first places we were seeing labor shortages was healthcare because there was significant growth in healthcare, so it showed up there first. And the thing was, well, we've got to get kids more interested in healthcare careers, so we've got to get out and talk to schools, so they get more kids interested in healthcare. And then I would go to other conferences. I go to a construction industry conference, and they say, well, we have a lot of aging workers in construction, and we don't have a lot of people coming into it. So we really got to get to the schools and show them that there are good jobs in construction, and that they need to be looking at this industry. And then I go to a manufacturing industry and say, we've got a lot of older workers that are getting ready to retire. We don't have a lot of new people coming in. So we really need to get to the schools and explain to them that there are a lot of good jobs in manufacturing. They need to be focusing and pushing people into manufacturing. And it kind of became evident that everybody has a lot of older workers because the baby boomers are all getting older and they're all getting ready to retire. And there's just aren't as many kids as there used to be. So the numbers that are retiring are greater than the numbers of kids coming in. So every industry, the economy in general, is going to be suffering from this same problem. Of course, luckily a huge recession came along and knocked that out of the box. But when the economy recovers, that's the situation we're going to be in. It's really going to be in a shortage of workers in order for the economy to grow, not necessarily a shortage of jobs. And in fact, for years we were talking about how the kids who are coming out today, we're going to have it really easy because of that situation. There's going to be this huge demand for workers because of the retirement of the baby boomers. Unfortunately, short term, that's not going to be the case. Don't do that. Actually, I like one there. There's a set of population projections done by Cornell University, and this is just the state chart. This is where the baby boomers are. This is, let's see, well, I'm in here. But the participation rates as people age really drop when they hit 55, and they drop really dramatically when they hit 65. So as more and more of this population, the baby boom population, is entering these older age groups, this chart, which used to have this nice wide piece down here, is getting big on the top. And you can see here's the 15 to 19-year-olds here, which is pretty close to the 50 to 54-year-olds, and the numbers get smaller after that. So the people that are, age groups that are coming in are not as large as the age groups that are leaving. And that's why over the long term, we're going to have fewer and fewer workers to take the jobs that will be available. And that's why we're saying that kids coming in today are going to have it much easier than the baby boomers did when they came in, because there were just so many of them. There weren't enough job opportunities. And
does that mean we're going to have to work longer?
They want you to work longer. They're trying to make you work longer. They're trying to make you want to work longer. They changed Social Security so that people can continue to work and not lose as much income from of the Social Security income. A lot of businesses are looking at changing their pension plans. They're aware of their pension plans, but again, trying to encourage people to work longer. For years, it was trying to get people to retire early because all those baby boomers are coming in. So let's get people to early retirement. That's not what really is going on now. Now they're trying to encourage people to stay in the labor force longer because the numbers coming in just aren't that great. It's also going to have an impact on productivity. When all the baby boomers came in, there was a big drop in productivity in the economy because there were all these new workers. Now those people are all very productive. Unfortunately, they're starting to leave. And again, we've got youth coming in. Youth are always less experienced. Work ethic has always been weaker. And so productivity will suffer because of that. We've got technological changes that are working to increase productivity. Hopefully we won't use so much technology that all the jobs will disappear. Because the perfect manufacturing facility has nobody that works there. And lights go on automatically and everything runs automatically. So we don't really want to get to the perfect manufacturing facility, but we do want to increase our local productivity. And so we want to have trained workers to increase our local productivity so that the business will come to our firms instead of going elsewhere. I guess people from Dresden, Germany were just here the last couple of days. Dresden is where Global Foundries has some significant number of plants. They were coming here to look at New York State and see what's going on here because they're competing with us for those Global Foundries plants. Global Foundries going to expand in Malta, or is it going to expand in Dresden? So far, we've got the highest end here in Malta. Hopefully, that will continue. But they're coming in and trying to figure out how can they compete with New York State. They said we can't offer as much money, but we have we have a skilled workforce. So I think they were trying to look at ours and make some comparisons. But ours is pretty skilled too. So I think we got them. Yeah. But anyway, I digress. Um, 10 minutes. I guess I should stop. Does anybody have questions? Yes.
I have a question, Jim. You started off by saying to us at the conference, and I quote, they ask for teenagers right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So though I'm inviting you into my class of teenagers, and you're not going to say that to them.
No, no.
Okay. So I
I'm
need
going to tell
some-
them that because of
You
the
know what? I
baby
need some
boomers.
encouraging
Their
words from
future
you
was bright.
to take back to my classroom to share with them that I've been sitting with Jim Ross from the labor market. Okay, so you're invited into this classroom of teenagers. How are you going to give them some words of encouragement that we can take back to them?
Well, again, the long-term trends are for baby boomers leaving the labor market and for the need and the demand for people to replace them. So the kids that are coming out of school today, and again, there's fewer and fewer of them because these are the children of the baby boomers, and that blip has gone through. So we're seeing a reduction in the number of people coming into the labor force for that age group, and more baby boomers retiring. So the demand is going to be very strong as they move through their entire life. Their services. So short term, today, because of the business cycle, which is, up and down, it's a short term situation, although this one tends to be a little longer and more severe than other recessions have been. But still, that will end. And when the economy starts to grow and recovers, the demand for those workers, and for those kids today, is going to be very strong as they move through the rest of their life. If they have the skills that are needed, because the skill levels are going up. And so for them, for those jobs to be successful here, again, we need to have a skilled workforce. So they need to get the education and the training required to take the jobs that are going to be there. Otherwise, those jobs will go elsewhere. Because jobs are very transient now. And business can take the jobs where the people are that can do it the best. And again, we've been very successful in attracting businesses here because we've got a skilled workforce. One of the reasons Global Foundries came here was because of what was going on at Albany. And Albany, the training that was going on there. So, we've got that, RPI, we've got great engineering schools here, we've got a great workforce. One of the first things they asked about when it was A&D, when they came to visit, was what are the school districts like? How good are the schools? For two reasons. One, potential workers are coming up through those schools. And also, the workers that they were going to be bringing in from the outside are very interested in, how good are your schools? In Texas, people are going to private schools. Do they need to pay for a private school in New York State or not? And in New York State, no. The public schools are high quality schools. But the big thing for students today is just the long-term trend is, baby boomers retiring. Your parents, they're leaving, and the demand for work is going to be strong for their age group. Again, as they move through their entire life. Except for these blips that we hit the business cycle when the economy turns down short term. And we had the same situation in the late 80s. We were talking about labor shortages, especially for teenagers at that time, because the baby boomers were moving out of that age group. So, departments, malls, always have like the whole thing. And the kid, if you didn't want to work on Saturday, said, boss, I don't want to come in. Well, then, I'm going to have to fire you. Okay, I'll go next door. I'll get a job next door, the next door. So the situation was very similar back then, and then we had a recession in the early 90s. So all the reports saying, I thought you said there would be only severe labor. I said, well, there will be. As soon as the business cycle moves up again. And sure enough, what happened was we started seeing those labor shortages move up the occupational scale, because the biggest shortage occurred first in the teenagers. So it was jobs that teenagers traditionally took. Then a little bit later, it was higher level and higher level as that group of post-baby boomers moved up. Then, of course, the children of the baby boomers came in. And we had growth again in teenagers in the 90s. And now we're seeing, I think the number of graduates peaked in 2009, high school graduates. And now it's starting to trend downward and will for another probably 15 to 20 years. So again, that's the big plus for kids today. It's long-term trends. They're going to be in demand. Again, they need to have the skills that are required to take the job.
Don't be discouraged.
Don't be discouraged. Parents can be discouraged because they want to get the kids out of the house short term. They're getting jobs. not have them living in the basement after.
Is there any information on students with disabilities?
We don't have any, we don't have any specific jobs that are suitable for people with different disabilities, because that depends on what their work disability is, as to what they can do. There are resources available at, the one-stop centers for people with disabilities to go in and get specific counseling and to find the services they need. But we don't have any labor market information specific to demand for workers with disabilities.
Are employers aware of the new work readiness certificate?
Not as many as you really want to have aware. Some are. I would say, big perspective, no, they're not. And that's something that people have been trying to push for a long time, but when you want to talk to them, oh, we never heard of that. And then when they look at it, they think, wow, that's really good. If somebody had this, yeah, I think this is valuable. But, talk to them the next week and I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and that was, we at the state, at Department of Labor, support the National Work Readiness Credential, the NWRC, and we have a, I think what you're referring to is what state ed has come forth with, and I don't know if that's what.
There's a difference.
Yeah, right, so that's what I just wanted, we're not totally familiar, I know that's a new, so.
And that's a problem. There was some reason that, it was SUNY, right? That one, there wasn't education as a whole, was there just the SUNY system?
Yeah, we're working.
Different. And there was some reason, they had a reason, there was always a reason, but it was a good reason. Any other questions?
Sorry, Jim. One thing I wanted to point out is many of you use Career Zone or some sort of career exploration tool in your classrooms. Raise a hand, anybody? Okay, cool. Like I said, we've had a few updates to Career Zone, and just kind of touching upon some things that Jim said today. We recently added licensed occupations in Career Zone, so we have all those. We have information over 800 occupations in Career Zone and Job Zone, which thankfully comes from labor market information. So we do have that information on licensed occupations in New York State. We are also working on adding apprenticeshable occupations. So that's really great information for you all to know. Our occupation detail pages. So for all those 800 occupations, we have information on wages. I think we go on annual median, I think, for the profile pages. There's just a whole variety of labor market information in Career Zone. We work closely with the Bureau of Labor Statistics. A lot of our information is driven from the Occupational Information Network. So this is sort of a package way for youth to explore labor market information. But just so you know, those are just some of the updates that we have recently added to Career Zone. And we also have Career Zone available in over 60 languages now. The Google Translate option is over in the right-hand corner there. That's available on Career Zone as well.
The data is still just statewide.
Yes, yep, and the data, Career Zone, there are 3 Career Zone systems available across the United States. It's New York State, Pennsylvania, and California. So all the labor market information here is New York specific.
But it's statewide, but a lot of that information is available at the regional level.
Right.
You just have to go into the labor market information page on the Department of Labor website and get that. But it is, we tried to figure out a way to put regional stuff in there, but
it was
too big, too much space.
So I just want to let you guys all know those are some of the system updates. If you guys have any questions or want to know a little bit more, you can see me after the presentation, or I'll be here the whole day. So.
How are you updating the dollars and cents section? I know, I love the section, and I think you introduced it maybe 2 years ago. Oh yeah. So are you adjusting some of the wages and the amounts of expenditures and so forth?
We get that information from these guys. That we pull that information from them on the wages. I think they just did an update. It's done on an annual basis.
Yeah, the wages are updated annually.
Yeah.
In terms of the cost side, I'm not sure what they call it. I'm assuming they pull that from BLS, which is probably an annual update as well. Well, it probably hasn't changed that much in the past couple of years because inflation has not been that.
Yeah, they adjust for that. I just don't have the technical answer for you on that, but they're updating that. we go through a vendor to update Career Zone, and they've been doing that, especially with our overhaul. There is a different look and feel to the dollars and cents tool now. We're also trying to discuss whether to incorporate college. There's all those different pieces like housing, transportation, obviously post-secondary education, whether you're going to, you know, through a union, college, whatever you're doing, is important for a youth to plan on. It's not free, as I know from my college debt. So that is one field we're thinking about adding. Just every time we do something, we try not to break Career Zone. So we've been testing a lot on, you know, on the background, behind the scenes. So, but that information is updated. The wages, the cost. Well, we have to figure out the cost, but that information is updated.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I know there's no master account option, so I can't look at all my students at once. Is there any way to request reports? Like if I were to ask you, can you print out a report of?
Yeah, we could do that. We have a new updated reporting site that our vendors have been working with us on developing a little bit further. So you can always email us you go to the Help Career Zone, just say, you know, I'm looking for how many youth in 8th grade created a portfolio account, yada, yada, yada. Or what was the most frequently used module of my school district? And every time a youth creates a portfolio account, it is school district driven. We also just added BOCES. So there are BOCES level, the student can select BOCES as their home school. We had a lot of students who were annoyed that wasn't in there because they don't, you know, associate with their home school. So that is in Career Zone now. And if for some reason you do not see your school, just send us an email too. We work off of State Ed's website, so all the schools should be on there. If you do work in, for example, New York City, a lot of people just type PS 108. We need the whole name of your school, and that'll populate the portfolio section. We also added a bunch of job search tools in Career Zone. We added a cover letter module, reference list module. I just tell you this is important while your students are going out on work-based learning experiences. It's great for them to have a reference list to, you know, to stay in touch with the person that employed them, volunteer experiences, whatever they're doing. So those are just, there's so many features I could share with you. What I'll do is have Mark share a list of all the updates we've had or will have coming, and you guys can, you know, just use that as your point of reference. If you have any questions. Yep. Go ahead.
For youth that are not in school but want to use Career Zone, do they have the same options that are available through the school system?
That is a great question. Let me start with, we just created a young adult portfolio account. That mimics the commencement level portfolio of Career Zone. So it'll mimic like 9 through 12, what that portfolio account would look like. Meaning they wouldn't have to put in a school when creating a portfolio account. If they're working with an organization, so let's say they work with the Boys and Girls Club, that's what we see with a lot of the Workforce Investment Act programs. They might be like an Urban League or Boys and Girls Club. They can type that in there. It's the same modules that is in the commencement level. So they can still put in their favorite school classes. They can still take all the assessments that are available. I think that kind of answers your question.
And would they be able to do that from home? I know a lot of kids do Career Zone through their schools.
Yeah.
They're home on their own computer.
This is
Whether they're in school or not, will they have? Do they get the same information by simply?
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter what access point you're at. You could same information. It's generated off your portfolio account. So whether you do that at school or home, it doesn't matter. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack Jim. Go ahead, Mark.
I think this is, Jim, I don't know. When, in our BOCES, when students might be placed on a construction site, I verify that employer has not been cited for a wage and hour violation or a safety violation. That was on Empire State Builders for a number of years. Is there any way to be able to identify employers that might have been cited for wage and hour issues when we start placing students and if they're in paid experience, we want to know?
Well, I think that there's worker protection people coming, one of the later panels, and they would be the better people to address that too.
Yeah, they do. We just had a press release out yesterday on some, I think it was the post office man who was stealing money. So We do keep track of that information. I don't know at what level labor, we have a labor standards representative coming later to that. Is that that? Oh.
Yeah.
There she is. I got it. So maybe she'll be able to help you with that question. Any other questions? Yeah.
How will New York State government blend? You are saying that DOL is endorsing the national credential, and SED is at this point endorsing what we discussed yesterday, which is the Credential of Work Readiness, or CDOS. So what we are, the level that is instructing students or providing work experiences for students. So where do we go? I mean,
well, I guess the answer to that is we back.
And I don't even know if you can answer that.
No, that's.
I think someone in New York State government needs to figure that out.
We've been working with state ed. We've been advising on that as well. My supervisor attends those meetings with state ed. The reason we supported the work readiness credential, actually my other supervisor was involved, Chris Myers, in the development of that credential. He was like more of a consultant on that. So from a workforce perspective, that's why we had supported that. It is meant for anyone that is out of school. That was part of, state ed also worked with us on the work readiness credential. They did not want a student to say, great, I can take this work readiness credential and I'll be done, I don't have to get my high school diploma. So what I think what this skills credential is doing is saying, what have I done in school? What are the skills I've attained, and how can I show that to a business? So it's sort of two different perspectives, and I don't think that they should work against each other. I think they complement each other. It's just sort of an age maturity difference.
So at this point, the national credential would be for individuals who do have high school diploma and yet want to enhance their portfolio.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, and we don't, it could also be for someone that wasn't school dropout. I mean, that's what we see a lot in our Workforce Investment Act programs.
Yes.
But it's really, what it measures is entry-level skills. That's what we heard from our state Workforce Investment Board. So, yeah, those two, we really, we're trying to work together. We're not working in silos on that. We've all been working together on that.
Yeah, eventually, once the upper level people say, yeah, we need the blending somehow, I'm sure there'll get the technical people involved, and information that's fed into either one may be able to find a place to translate into the other.
And I think we all have to work together to make the business community aware. And I don't think it's just you guys, it's the Department of Labor, it's all of us as a state is saying, hey, businesses, we're all trying to work on showing you that our preparation in Department of Labor side, state ed side, that these youth are ready. So I think that's our sort of our push and I think our next conversations to take forward.
They used to call the group the disconnected group. That's 18 to 24. They drop out of 6 months or more. They wind up in the penal system. Where were you? What were you doing? Do you have any skills? And that was the purpose of the certificate, from what I understand.
For the work readiness credential? Not just for that population, more generally. It's just, I mean, there's adults. We have a lot of adults who have never had a job, and if you stay at home, for example, with your children, you decide to go to work one day, you can't really show your skills because you haven't had an employment as well. The entry level work readiness credential is to say, hey, here are some work readiness skills that I have. So it's not targeted for a specific population. It's more for that entry level worker.
Perhaps that was the spark that started it.
Right.
Maybe they looked at doing something then and said, well, let's expand it.
Okay.
We need something broader.
Any other questions? I think, are we good on time? We'll kind of.
Yeah, I think, I know you're going to be on some other panels, so maybe some of the other questions will be answered in our other topics.
Thank you, Jim. You did a great job.
Jim, thank you very much from WECA for Christina, even though you'll be here all day.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
If anybody needs a cup of coffee or to go to the bathroom, I think we're just gonna work right through this since we've got a little bit of a late start. Our next panel is going to talk about young workers' rights on the job. So if our panelists would come up for that, please.